Welcome back to the Witch's Way podcast, Season 3.
Season 3.
I'm Kat.
And I'm Jamie. And we wanted to give a precipice. Why do I always do that? That's not the word. We want to preface what this year, 2026, for Season 3 of our podcast is going to be. Number one, our biggest change is that we're not doing it every Saturday like we were. It's not going to be out every Saturday. We're doing every other Saturday because this is the year where we get into some seriously deep personal shit. And we're going to need time in between some podcasts to just process, think through. While you guys go on this journey with us, we'll be having our own journey of healing as we really get our stories out into the universe, to a whole scope of people. Our desire with telling our most intimate personal stories of change, of dealing with fear, of pushing through really hard abusive relationships, with leaving behind people that weren't good for us, but that we felt so bonded and connected to. The purpose of talking about all of that is to know that you guys are not alone. We have been through the same things, and when you decide to just sit down and talk with somebody, I swear, if you talk to a stranger for 5 minutes, you're going to find things you have in common. I've learned this now by putting myself out there for the last 6 years almost. And this is just one of the ways that Katz and I want to fulfill that part of it, is to really let you guys know what's been behind us. Even though we're here and you know us today, we've been through some shit.
Well, also, I think there can be a perception when people meet you or get to know you when they don't know what you've been through, that it's you seem like you've had a charmed life, or you seem like you've got your shit together, or maybe you had the white picket fence. I know Jamie has been accused by one of her friends about, you had a white picket fence life, you had it so easy. You know what? Nobody has it easy. Yeah. And that's the truth, because we're brought here to learn things.
Yeah, we're souls having a human experience.
That's why we're here.
It's a classroom.
It's a classroom.
It's supposed to be hard sometimes. The thing about getting the challenges that we get through relationships, jobs, people, our kids, our parents, whatever it is, we're supposed to get those tough things so that we decide how we're going to react to it, involve ourselves, pull away, set our healthy boundaries. All these things grow us spiritually as we learn more about ourselves and what we're capable of. In a lot of our stories, you're going to hear how we probably started out being afraid or having not the belief in ourselves that we do now. And there's an evolution that happens for each of us when we go through hard shit, and it's picking yourself back up, whether you do it alone or you have a group of people to do it with. There's just this very human thing about falling apart, being on the floor, and then picking yourself back up. We have lots of sayings and different all throughout all the cultures of when you go through hard stuff, how to handle it, words of positive affirmation type stuff, because that's literally what everybody experiences in every culture around the world, because we're all humans. We came here to do this as souls. And tonight is Kat's first big story.
I am kicking this off. Okay, so
yeah.
And in the universe's humor, good humor, we planned to record this yesterday, and then Jamie was sick all day. And so we're recording it today, and it just so happens that today, the day we're recording, January 11th, is the subject of this podcast's birthday. So
it's
the universe,
birthday.
I feel like the universe is laughing or something, be like, oh
yeah, set it up. I didn't know that today was his birthday, but yeah, it is apropos, just happened.
Absolutely. It's really
very interesting.
Okay, universe, I get it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to get too emotional. This story's 30 years old, and it's really about how I made certain decisions based on fear, and the impact of those decisions that I made based on fear. A lot of times when you make a choice, when you have to make a choice, especially when it's driven by fear, you go to that direction and you don't really see how the end is going to come out. And then when you finally are able to reflect on it, you're like, damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know what you were about to say, but how are you feeling?
Right this minute?
Right now.
I'm actually really nervous, and I've been nervous all day, and I don't know why, because I feel like I know all of you, and I know that you've got, I know that you feel me. I mean, we've been sharing content with you now for well over a year, so you know who we are, and I almost feel like you guys, if you haven't met me in person, you probably have a certain maybe respect for me, for my experience and knowledge and stuff. But this is going to take you back to like 30 years ago when I was much less evolved than I am today. And I guess that's a testament to our evolution. Like you can go through bad things. You can get through it. You can get to the other side of it. You can eventually get to the point where you're reflecting on choices that you made. And even now, at age 67, writing this out, because I had to write the whole thing out so that I could figure out how I would condense it into a podcast, but get the points across that are important. Yeah. And that I also feel will connect with people, because I'm sure that I am not the only woman who's gone through this. I like know that in my soul. But so I've been nervous all day, but now that I'm here, I think I'm fine. So should we just jump in, or do we need to do is there anything else we want to say?
I'll just tell you, I'm like a little nervous, but I don't know that I'm nervous for you. It's also where this is Kat's life as her, outside of just being my mom and everything. She had to go through experiences that I was, younger. So we didn't necessarily talk about all of these things a long time ago. I was, 8 to 13, 14 years old. Mm-hmm. So reliving it now as she's an adult, and just kind of like, I have some nerves because it's my childhood story too. I mean, it's your young womanhood story, and it's my childhood story, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, listen, my decisions really impacted my kids, which is, as a mother, is something that you always have guilt about. You're like, if I hadn't done this, then they wouldn't have experienced that. Yeah. But I also know that, again, we're here for lessons, and we chose to come back. My children chose to come back as my children. I chose to be their mother. I chose all the things. I chose all the lessons that I needed to learn in this life. So not really anything to be nervous about, just being like, damn.
It's just a lot. We are, just get ready for some intense stuff. Okay. Some stories.
So this has taken us back to like 1987, and I am 29 or about to be 29 years old. This is the story of my second marriage, actually, because I did end up marrying this guy for insurance. Right,
oh, Lord.
Because at one point in time, so the relationship lasted 6.5 years, but about 3 years in, I got a bad pap smear, and I was convinced in my head that I was going to have cervical cancer. So this was a time in my life when I was really living in a lot of those root chakra feelings, of fear and scarcity and, all the things. And, you're just really in survival mode. So at any rate, even though this relationship was fucked up from the start, after about 6 months in, it really exploded in my face, and then took me through like 6 years, me and my kids, 6 years of pain and suffering. It was just also like I was in survival mode this whole time. So this is a story of Chuck and me and Chuck, and how Chuck impacted me, and how he impacted my children, which I'm sure Jamie may have some stories that she wants to share, but if she doesn't, that's later. Okay too. Yeah. Just know that there's a lot. So anyway, let me just give you the before Chuck, what was going on before Chuck. So before Chuck, it's the 80s, and I'm in my 20s. I was married to Jamie's dad, and we were doing the typical things that 20-year-olds in the 80s were doing. We were partying hard. I mean, MTV came out. We spent our time, we didn't, listen, we were complete fuck-offs. We didn't have shit going for us. The only jobs I'd had through my whole entire 20s were like cashier, maid, and what else did I do? A waitress. That was the extent of my skill. By the time I got to 30, the only skills I had were cashier, maid, and waitress, right? So no skills.
I'm dealing with people.
But, one of the reasons I want to tell this story, because it's a story about making decisions and then staying longer than you should have or wanted to. Yeah. Being able to leave behind, let go of the guilt that I have around the impact of my children. But the biggest takeaway from this is this is a story of survival and the choices that we make when we're in survival mode, and how those choices may or may not serve us. Years later, I can look back and say, we all survived it. We have our war stories to tell about it, but we're all okay. And I don't know if we're better for it, but again, we chose it. So I think the important thing for anybody that's maybe going through this something like what I'm about to tell you about is that survival decisions, they're not moral failures. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. What happens with fear is it narrows our choices. It limits our choices. It limits what we believe we can do, and then it limits what we ultimately do. And that I feel so deeply because okay, I started to tell you, I'm 20 years old. I'm in my 20s. I'm in love, desperately in love with Jamie and Jolene's dad. We'd known each other since we were 15, and it was just like that was supposed to be my person for my whole life. And because of choices he made, he was going to jail all the time, and we were both.
He's a petty criminal. What you call that?
Yeah,
petty crime.
I mean, just stupid ass
6
shit,
months
right?
Here, 3 months there.
But I mean, the point is he was super irresponsible, and so I lived off of welfare and food stamps, and the kids didn't have shit. So anyway, our relationship ended for good. Finally, like when Jolene was about a year old, and that would have been 1987, in the spring of 1987, summer of 1987. And when I filed for divorce, and then I hit this spot. So another thing to note about this is like, think of my age. I'm 29, or about to be 29, or about to be 30, and what happens to all of us around age 30?
The Saturn's return.
Our Saturn returns to the exact sign and placement that it was at the time that we were born. And this is a huge thing that happens to everyone. And it's like, what happens to us is that we're forced to look at who we are and decide if that's who we really want to be. And so many people make career changes. They get divorced. They make big moves. Big moves.
It's a disruptor for sure.
It's definitely a distorter. So what happened to me, like we broke up for the final time, which was heartbreaking to me, and I don't think I even believed it at the time that it was happening, even though I was moving forward with it, and I felt like, it was the only thing that I could do.
You needed a change.
Yeah, it was the only thing I really could do. But I also, I just told you about my skills. I had none. So I was coming out of a grocery store one day, and there were some people signing up, asking if you wanted to go to school for like 12 weeks to get your office skills back up to speed so that you could go work in an office. And I was like, I was really good at that in high school. I'd taken a couple of years of business, and I really excelled in those classes and really liked them. I was like, yeah, I'm doing that. So I signed up to go to this school, and so I started doing that. And so I was, I was trying to change my life and improve it because I felt like my kids deserved something better than what they had gotten through my 20s. So anyway, I'm in school, and I meet a guy who I knew him through, I had a best friend, her name was Lisa, and Chuck was her ex-brother-in-law. He had been married to her sister. So I knew of him through her, and I didn't really know a lot about him other than the fact that his wife, my best friend's sister, had cheated on him a bunch. So I of course, the minute you hear somebody's cheating, you're like, oh, you poor thing.
You broken bird.
Oh, you little broken wings, let me fix you, right? But, uh-oh, I'm losing my place.
You lost your place.
So when I met him, I was like, first of all, I had decided that I was done being in my 20s and doing the things that I'd been doing in my 20s. So I was clean. I was going to school, and I was determined to make a better life for my kids. And then this guy comes into my life, and he seems really nice, and he connects with my kids, and I bond with him. And I started looking at him. I was living on $800 a month, and he was making $800 a week, which seemed like $1 million to me. And I was just like, ooh. This is like almost too good to be true, right? So as we got to know each other over the next six months or so, he was a long haul truck driver, so I only saw him like on the weekends. He would roll into town, and he would spend time with my kids, and the kids seemed to really like him. He was really like warm with the children. children. I don't know if you can remember any of that. Yeah, because too much happened after that. And she was, you were 7 or something, around 7 years old when that happened.
Yeah.
So, but, I saw him, interacting with my children, and the kids liked him. And when he would come around, there would be hugs and all this stuff, right?
And he had 2 small boys, even though I don't think...
No, he only had... Did he have 2 at that time? Yeah, I guess
he
so.
He would have had 2.
Yeah, he had 2, yeah.
Well... Yeah.
Yeah, because we never, he had 2 kids. He had 2 kids that were
baby.
Right. One of them was a baby, so one of them was a year younger than Jolene, and the other one was a year older than Jolene. Yeah. So if she was 1, he had an infant, basically, and then he had a 2-year-old. Yeah. When we got together.
I think that's why he was good with the kids thing, because he already experienced some of that. Yeah. Of with his own boys.
The one thing, was he was from Kansas City, and I was just like, I'm never going to live in Kansas City. There's nothing there but cows and cornfields. And then I took a trip out there with him. And I was like, oh my God, it's an actual city, and they have like.
There's always this joke about they have running water and toilets. I was like,
it's like a city with big buildings and stuff. I was like, oh, this I could do. This, I was like, it was totally not what I expected. So it was like a metropolis to me. I was like, I could do this. I could live here. So we started talking about me moving there. Uprooting with him, right? Mm-hmm. So moving to Kansas City with him, with the kids, and there was a couple of things that drove my decision to do that. One was, first of all, I felt like this was an opportunity for me to finally have some financial security and get off the welfare rolls and not have food stamps anymore and shit like that. And, now that I had a job, by this time I was working for a ambulance chasing lawyer in Palm Springs, and so I was getting some experience in an office. And, the other thing that was going to happen that summer in the following year was that my ex-husband was going to be back in the desert. And I thought long and hard about that. And I told you I had feelings for him for like 15 years after this. I didn't fall out of love with him. It took me 15 years to get over him. That's how long it took, I think. And before I finally gave up the fantasy that we would ever be back together again. But he was going to get out. And I knew that if he got out and came back to our town where we lived in the desert, that I would not be able to stay away from him, that I would get pulled back into all the stuff that I'd been involved with for the last 6 or so years that we'd lived in the desert. And you know what? I didn't want that. I needed a way out, and Chuck provided that way out. So that's where I made the decision right there. The decision was based on fear and then this false sense of security that I had when I was with him. Because naturally, motherfuckers do not show you their true colors until they get you in a position where it's safe for them to show you.
Where you can't leave, they get you stuck.
Yeah, or you get stuck.
I really liked, in your notes, you had put something, and I'm just going to read it really quick because I liked this.
Go ahead.
When you're coming out of chaos, relief can feel like love. And I think that's that cushion of thinking you found security after coming out of chaos. I could see where that led you, into... I mean, obviously he wanted you to go. It's not like you forced yourself on him or anything, but him kind of pulling you there and you being like, the easier thing, this feels like there's caring and love there because there was relief versus the life you just were leaving, which was chaos. So
right.
I like that you wrote that. Coming out of chaos, relief can feel like love. And I can say that. Definitely experienced the same thing.
You know what this actually was, of course, on reflection, and I could look back on it, I was like, this was an escape-based relationship. I was looking to make an exit to get the fuck out of Southern California and away from all the people, because my ex-husband, by then, was, my connection to all the bad things that we'd been doing for, the previous, 10 years or whatever. Yeah. And I just didn't feel strong enough to resist it. I was determined to make a better life for my kids, but I knew when I saw that man that I was just going to be like, that was it. He had a pull on me that I could not get away from. So I basically had to escape. And I used Chuck, and I hate to say that I used him because he always used to accuse me of still being in love with my husband. And I would lie and say, no, I'm not. He knew. But maybe that's just normal. So anyway, we decide that we're going to move to Kansas City. He rents a house there, and we pack up my stuff. And before we leave, so my best friend, who'd been my best friend for 6 or 7 years at this point, before we leave, like right before, like we're packing, right? We're getting stuff in his truck. He's got a big 18-wheeler. I'm putting all my stuff in the back of it. He'd brought his car out. I'm driving the car out with the kids to get from California to Kansas City. He instigates a fight with my best friend. And I didn't know it at the time, but he was ensuring that I didn't have that to go back to. I feel like that was intentional.
Yep.
And I did not recognize it in that moment. Only on reflection did I see that. But he started a big fight between us, and we left on bad terms. I left on bad terms with her because of the shit that he started. So, lo and behold, we're driving out of California. We cross into Arizona, and I am not kidding you guys when I tell you that the minute that we crossed the California-Arizona border, a light switch flipped in him, because we were on the road. Of course, he's in an 18-wheeler. I'm falling behind in a car, and he pulls into a truck stop or whatever and gets out of his car, and he is in a rage. He is red-faced. His arms are flailing, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? What's wrong? And he gets to my car, and he accuses me of following behind some other guy, some other truck driver or car or whatever, and wanting to fuck him. And I'm like, what? It was so ridiculous that I laughed it off. But that was a warning right there.
Yeah.
That was a warning of things to come.
Yeah.
So we got through that. We get to Kansas City. We move into this duplex, and we're not in Kansas. I'm not there 30 days. And we're driving down our street, and our neighbor, like across the street neighbor, guy about our age, is out watering his lawn, and he waves to me. And so, or he waves to us, and I wave back to
the
him.
car, yeah.
Yeah, he waves to the car, and I wave back at him. And Chuck, I'm wearing glasses, and he backhands me and hits me like right smack in the face, so that I've got blood running down my face and shit. Yeah. So at that point,
yes, everybody breathe.
Yeah.
Like just.
So at that point, after the incident, and when we crossed over into Arizona with the craziness, all of a sudden this raging, jealous, crazy person came out, revealed himself to who he really was. And so when he hit me and was unapologetic about it, I shouldn't have waved to the guy, right? I knew then I'd made a mistake. And so I was like, I want to go back. I want to leave. I want to get out of here. Well, I had no car, no money, no job, no nothing. My best friend, who was back in California, we'd fallen out. My family didn't want anything to do with me because all the shenanigans that my husband and I they'd had to put up with things for years, and I just kind of kept them out of the loop anyway. But my family was not a place that I could go to. There was no one to go to. I was so desperate to leave that I thought about hitchhiking with my 3 kids across country and just be like, I'm out of here. I'm done, right? But I had 3 kids in 2 hands. And I was like, I'd hitchhiked across the country when I was 16 by myself. And I was like, okay, I could defend myself. I hitchhiked with her when she was 5, and I was okay to defend myself. But 3 children, getting across country with 3 children, I was like, I just felt that was too dangerous and it wasn't worth the risk. So I stayed.
Fear.
Out of fear. So by the fall of that year, I got a job. I got a temporary job, which turned into a full-time job with the Kansas City, Missouri School District. And when I first started, I was making like $7 an hour through a temp agency. And then 9 months later, I was making like $9 an hour when they hired me on. But I still didn't have my own car. I was still dependent on him. I didn't make enough money. And by this time, I had been exposed to what Kansas City has to offer you when you're poor as fuck, which is living down in the hood when everybody's poor as fuck, and
lots of violence, lots of
drugs, lots of violence, lots of ways for my children to go astray, and just like, and that scared me. I had never lived, I came from a middle class family. And I'd never lived in that type. I'd never had to live in that type of an environment before, and I was afraid. I probably could have left then because I would have made enough money to rent a really cheap place down at 18th and Central in Kansas City, Kansas. But I was afraid. I was afraid for my children. I was afraid for me. I was afraid for our safety. I was afraid of everything. I was living in a just complete fear at that time. So I stuck around.
Yeah.
And this stayed this way for a while until, a few years later I married him. But the thing about him was like, it wasn't always bad. He was gone a lot because he was an over-the-road truck driver. But when he would come home, he would be in a bad mood, and the kids couldn't do anything. It seemed like the kids couldn't do anything without him getting onto him, and then I would have to get in the middle of it because I thought he was really harsh. He was very verbally abusive, like very like mean, and is just super mean with his tone, and I hated that shit. And I know when you got with your husband, you're like, I'll raise my kid and you stay out of it, right? I wish I could have done that. I would have saved, but I don't know that, but I didn't. That's the point. So the kids went through a lot of shit, and nobody liked him.
We were just getting through it. I think everybody knew that there was eventually going to be an end to this shit. Like, either he was going to change or you guys were going to break up, but it was just like never knowing what was going to happen with him. And the thing that Jolene and I used to talk about all the time in our 20s after getting out of basically watching that bad relationship is when he would get onto us or something was going on and he was mad, he had a condition where his hands were completely calloused over, and he would get right in our faces and he would take his first finger and he would stab us in the chest as he was talking. So like every word was a punch to your chest bone right here. And it would just instantly make you well up with tears. It was like, it hurt. And also he's talking really mean and like saying whatever the shit he was saying, but it was like, just keep getting through it, just keep getting through it. I think we all put on that hat of we
survival
can,
mode.
We can get through this. We'll get through it. Like, it'll be okay.
Everything was survival mode. But I was pretty miserable. I gained a lot of weight. I got up to like 235 pounds. I still didn't have my own vehicle. He had the only vehicle that it took me a few years before I got to the point where I had enough credit or I had enough history with my work experience to be able to qualify to get a car loan. And I did that. And so, but there are so many incidences, and I can tell you that I was very unhappy. And at one point, I even sought counseling, and since I didn't have any money, I went to the university, Kansas University, where they had the psychology students that have to do a certain amount of, I don't know if it's called pro bono work or whatever.
It's just hours of counseling that you don't get paid for till you're actually certified.
Yeah. So I went there and I saw a counselor, a young girl that was a psychology student, and I got to talk to her, and at least that was some relief. And then I had a friend that I was able to talk to, and somehow from one, we moved from one house to another house, and then to where we lived in one house a year, then we lived in another house like 3 years, and then we moved to out in the fucking country to a shit ass house that didn't have air conditioning. The kids loved it because they could get away from him because it was a big farm.
It was a big farm.
And they could just be out. And that was one of the things that my kids would do is like when he would come home,
we're gone.
They were gone.
Disappear.
They were in the neighborhood or whatever. So they avoided him.
I lived in the woods.
They avoided him as much as they could. I could not avoid him. And anytime he would get on to the kids, I would get in the middle of it. And he was really, really hard. Stepdads with boys they're really tough on them. So my son became very rebellious because of the control, like Chuck was like constantly, it just felt like your thumb, like on him all the time. So he became the rebel. Jamie was always the peacekeeper, but that whole thing with her being the peacekeeper and just trying to make him happy and trying to keep everything on this even keel, that became who she was. And then Jolene became a mirror, and I did not realize this. I didn't, it's only on reflection that I see this now, that she was mirroring what was going on. But I remember this, the last house that we lived in. So one place 3 years, 1 year, 3 years, 6 months, and then our last house was 1 year that we lived in. And when we lived in that house, shit was really going bad. Because by this time now, I was in another job. I was working for a PR firm, and I was making $25,000 a year. And when I tell you I thought I was rich, I thought I was fucking rich, right? I had my own car.
Shit going on.
And so, at this point, I'm like really considering, my options, like how do I get out of this? When does this end? When does all this end? Because we were all just constantly walking on eggshells with this motherfucker who could not control his emotions. He'd had a fucked up childhood. His father was super abusive. He told me about one time his father took the Christmas tree and threw it out into the yard, and their whole family was fucked up. Like they'd been traumatized by him, so he absorbed all of that. I'd also find out probably 3 or 4 months after knowing him that he was illiterate. So he could barely read, and I had no idea, because you drive a truck, you fill out logbooks, how can you not read? But he couldn't read, and that impacted who he felt, what he felt about himself. Yeah. And so all of that came out. When you're dealing with somebody that's so damaged and then has such low self-esteem, that shit cannot help but impact your relationship with them. And he wasn't willing to look at himself or to explore, and you couldn't have an intellectual conversation with him because he just was not capable. Not that he was a stupid man, but he was an uneducated man.
Unevolved. I would say unevolved. He lived at baseline too. I mean,
yeah.
There was just so many parts of him that stayed in this one area of just make shit work. I gotta make a living. I gotta do this, whatever it takes. Prove myself. That's what happens when we don't have confidence, right? You're constantly looking for approval in outside sources.
And he was a hard worker. I mean, he never was without a job. He was always trying to make more money because he had 2 kids from a previous marriage that he had to pay child support on. Plus he was, taking care of our family, a family of 5. And so, he was a hard worker. He's a Capricorn. It's January 11th, so that makes him a Capricorn, but he was highly unevolved. And by this time, again, I'm married to him. But anyway, that last year in the house, a lot of things happened that I've blocked out. A lot of things happened to my children that I didn't know about, that I've only heard about years later, incidences where he would do things when I wasn't around, and it was never beat on them, but it was beat them down in spirit. I think that's what it was. It's he was trying to crush their spirit, and there was a point where Jamie was describing how he would be in front of them and like this,
poking the finger in the chest,
him and Jolene, where he was getting on to Jolene about something, I don't know what. This is in our last house. We lived on a street called Lloyd in Kansas City, in this really cool,
super
1900 2-story big porch. I love that house too. We love that house.
So cool.
I still looked at it and going I would love to have that house, because it was such a fucking cool old house, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we lived our last year. But anyway, this one day he's getting on to Jolene, and he's she's 8 years old. She's a little bitty. But even though when she was younger, she was not a target for some of his behaviors, as she got older and sort of her personality started to form, they started butting heads too, because my youngest daughter's not going to take shit from people. And I think that part of her that can't tolerate taking shit from people started really young. It's part of her personality, but that started to come out. So then you got the rebel, the peacekeeper, and the little rebel.
The mirror rebel. She's the mirror rebel.
Mirror rebel, yeah. So anyway, this one day he's in her face, and I'm watching this from across the room, and she's standing there, and she's just stiff like this and staring straight ahead, and she's got this huge alligator tears, and I looked at that scene and I thought, he's going to break her spirit, and I can't let that happen. I can't let that happen.
And that was the deciding moment that you knew you had to go.
That was when I knew it was over, because it was never going to change, because it had always been like this. Even though we could go months maybe without a blow up, it always came back to this place where he was trying to control and where he demeaned, and where he was just so fucking mean and cruel with his words, that it was just, God. it's just awful. So that day when I saw that, I was like, yeah. So at that moment, I'm pretty sure I started like looking for like, okay, I have a car, I'm making enough money, I can get out of this. And then the final thing happened where one morning I'm getting ready for work and he's ragging about something. I don't know what the fuck. And I was so fucking sick of listening to his shit. I'm standing there and I'm ironing my clothes, you know, like I'm in the living room. I got the ironing board out because I'm getting ready to go to work. And my cup of coffee's on the ironing board and he's talking shit to me. And you know what, you guys, this is wrong. I admit. But I fucking picked up that coffee cup because he came at me. He came toward me to get in my face like was typical of him. He came toward me and I picked up that coffee cup and I smashed it right alongside of his head. And he's like, my ear. He starts screaming about his ear. He had trouble with his ears. You know, he starts screaming about his ears. And then I didn't remember what happened after that. But Jamie did. Do you want to tell this part of the story? Because I sort of like blanked it out and didn't even remember what happened afterwards. I didn't remember the order of things until Jamie reminded me. So I'll let you tell this part of the story.
So the altercation starts, and then I see my mom take her coffee cup and just wham him upside the head. And I'm smiling and laughing because I was almost like, finally, fight back, or something. But truly, it was just like, oh, fuck, like you just, you poked the snake or the bear or whatever people say. But I knew, it was like, it's not about to be good. I didn't know what he was going to do. And when he got done sort of holding his head, he literally grabbed her by her shoulders, threw her on the ground, and then... This is not an over-dramatization. He, with the heel of his foot, started stomping on her face. And so he stomped her, I'm pointing just above her eye, he stomped this part of her head in for, 10 stomps. But as soon as I saw that, I knew he was going to kill her. And my duty was to run and find a phone and call the police. I knew if I stayed in the house to call the police, he would get me. So it was like... I knew she was already knocked out, like just laying there, and I just thought he's never going to stop, and he's going to kill her. So I hopped a 6-foot fence. I don't know how. That's when you get your human strength, your superhuman strength when you're going through shit. Ran into some stranger's house screaming for a phone, and then called 911, and it was like... I had no idea if my mom was going to be alive when they got there. And Jolene was following me out of the house, but she was smaller than me, so couldn't get over the fence. I don't even know how she figured out which house I had run into, probably commotion and people like standing at the door looking in like, what the fuck just happened? This girl just ran in our house out of nowhere. So yeah, when I saw her next, it was the next day, and she had 2 major black eyes. She had a horn off of her head that was just like... It was insane, the fact that it didn't kill her, the fact that, I don't think you have brain damage.
Well, the crazy thing is like, I don't remember it. I have when Jamie was telling me that that's what happened, I was like, fuck, I didn't even remember that. Yeah. But I do remember, she said I had, 2 black eyes, 2 big black eyes, right? Yeah. And then I did remember having to make an excuse. I remember taking some time off of work, and then when I went back to work, having to lie that I'd been in a car accident because I had 2 black eyes. And that's all that I remember. But I think Jamie went he
left before the cops got there. The ambulance came and got her. Somebody else came and got us, and then you came back the next day. But it was like, did you, then it's all the questions. Do you want him to come back here? Are you pressing charges? What's your plan? What are you going to do? So they kept him away from the house for like a week. We started looking for a place, and then that's when we moved over next to KU. And
well, the thing was, I think I woke up after all of that happened. I mean, just looking back at what had happened, what my children seeing it, his willingness to just like stomp on my head and fuck me up like that. I mean, he'd never done it. That was extreme for all of it, for all of his, emotional and verbal abuse that he'd done over the years. That was really an extreme thing. Of course, I instigated, I guess, but I reached the fucking end of my rope, you guys. When I tell you I was done with this motherfucker, I was done, and that was it. And the next day or that night or whenever, within a very short time after that, I said to myself, I don't care if I have to live under a tree. If we have to live under a tree, I'm fucking done.
Yeah.
I'm fucking done. And within a week, I had a duplex rented, and I just, I don't even think he was there because everything belonged to him. He'd bought everything. So I just took the kids and their stuff, and we moved into this duplex, and I stopped, and we picked up a couch on the side of the road and started over. And I was like, okay, that's it. We're out of there. Finally, finally in our own place where you can finally feel safe and free of him.
Yeah. His abuse wasn't always like smacking, hitting, punching. It was things like, I was telling my mom how I learned to vacuum, which I guess is one of my trauma stories. But the way that he taught us to clean or do anything, my sister and I, is to teach us or show us. He would literally grab us by the crown of our head, by our hair, and then he would direct our bodies to do things. Like, that was, how do you vacuum? Like this. And the head was the thing that controlled the vacuum, and I had to, keep my body stiff while he pushed my head into the direction that I was supposed to be going with the vacuum. And he did that to me, and I was thinking, well, I was older, but when I knew that he had done that to Jolene, it was like, she's so much fucking younger than me. Like, we knew that last year, it just was getting out of control I remember that
he was losing control of everything because all the kids were getting older and not willing to submit to it, and so it was escalating. So things were really escalating.
Do you remember when he held John up by the neck on the door that led to the basement and had him off the ground?
No.
So see that those things didn't happen early on. Like, the abuse was mostly focused on my mom, but there was like the verbal, emotional, the terror that he was, always putting the fear of, in us. But that last year he got physical with pretty much everybody, and just, there was more violence, and, it came to a head so it could end. It had to be enough to really end it.
Yeah. So, we moved out, and, he tried to come back around, and being the softie that I am, and of course, I never learned my fucking lesson the first time. Of course, I somewhat entertained it and would listen to him and stuff, and then, but I could feel the underlying current of what was really there, even though he was putting on this face, right, of like, I'll be good. I won't do that anymore. I'll change, all these things, all these promises and shit like that, and then one day, the five of us all went in his Suburban somewhere, and he had a flip out. He flipped out over something. I don't know what it was. She doesn't remember. I don't remember
at all.
But that terror that I used to feel when he would flip out like that, where I was afraid he was going to hurt me or the kids, came back at that moment. And I knew right then, I was like, it's never going to fucking change. Ever. Yeah. Ever. And so one day we were sitting outside because he was like really trying to reconcile, and I had not filed for divorce at this point. But we were sitting outside on the back step of my duplex. We were talking, and he was talking about getting back together and stuff, and I just looked at him and I said, we're never getting back together, ever. And that is not lyrics from a Taylor Swift song, although she did make one later.
Although it is, yeah.
Although she did make one later with those same lyrics in it. But I said, we're never getting back together. Never. And I could see the look of acceptance on his face. He knew then, and he just walked away and was like, okay.
Yeah, he just resigned it all. It was like, you put in all the work, and then the moment that he could tell you were serious, he's like, yeah, fuck it, I'm done then.
Yeah, exactly. That was it.
It wasn't... that's where it's like, I don't feel like it was meaningful for him either. It was just what he knew. It was what was comfortable. I always try to think about, like, what was he running from? What did he need? What was it why would he take on a woman and 3 kids anyways? And, just... Like,
why would he do that?
I don't know.
Why would he do that? For a while, we had his kids, and I was helping him raise his 2 kids. So, maybe he needed somebody that had kids so that they could welcome more kids into the house. I don't know.
Yeah.
We could never talk like in other relationships that I had, like with my first husband, or even the guy, a guy that I spent 15 years with, where we had really deep, like, you could really get deep into your traumas and stuff, and he could never go there. He could talk about a few things, and he could talk about his father, but the only story I heard about was, the Christmas tree, and then, like, for Christmas he got a shirt, and his dad was verbally abusive, and he probably hit all the kids and stuff, but there was never like reflection. There was never like like trying to heal from all of the things, and the jealousy that he felt, supposedly because his wife cheated on him, but I think that was just in his makeup to be super suspicious and really jealous and not trust people. You know, he never believed that I loved him, and I did for a while. You know, I did, but he made me fucking hate him. He really did. He made me hate him. And so when I left and divorced him, then I was fucking done. Yeah. And I didn't want anything to do with him. And I want to tell you guys something. He went on to marry somebody else, and he spent like 20 years with her. And he was, evidently he was successful because he bought his own big rig, you know, big semi truck that he drove for himself. So he had his own. I don't know how he managed to do that. Maybe he eventually learned to read, or I think he had enough reading that he could get by in the world. But he had his own truck because I saw it on Facebook. And I hear about him because of my friend, whose nephews are her nephews, my best friend Lisa. His children are her nephews, and she's close to all of her kids. So I would know what was going on with him. But anyway, he married this woman, and they were together for 20 years. And then one day, Lisa calls me and says, you know, Trudy died. That was his wife. Trudy died. I guess she'd had cancer, and she'd been sick for a while. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. I didn't know the woman, right? And I didn't care. I didn't give a fuck about him. Still, I don't care about him. He's a human being, but you know what? He left a lot of damage in his wake, because my kids, you know, have been dealing with the aftermath of that for their whole entire lives. And especially Jolene seems to be, you know, each one of them, and I guess I'm speaking for my kids, and you can speak up if you know something different, but each one of them had to deal with it in their own way. Like, Jolene became very angry and pissed off, and then I don't know about you, but then my son was like, you know, he sort of just like compartmentalized it. And at one point, he and Chuck had a relationship for a short period of time, and Chuck apologized to him for all the shit that he'd done, and John accepted that. But then one day they had a falling out, and I'm sure Chuck went back to that same like tone of voice where it's like this controlling asshole, demeaning you and stuff. And John was like, at this point, John's like, yeah, no, dude, no, you were able to do that shit to me when I was a kid, but you can't get away with that anymore. And he fucking completely cut him off.
And John was in his 30s. My brother was in his 30s when this happened. Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing about after his wife died. He fucking reached out to me. Lisa said, Chuck wants your number, or I gave him your number or something. And so he reached out to me, and I'm like, yes, you know, what can I do? He's like, well, I thought maybe you needed a friend. And I...
What a thing to say.
I thought maybe you'd need a friend. And I was just like, oh my God, are you that motherfucking clueless that you actually think that I would want to be friends with you?
Yeah.
Are you out of your mind? No. I said, not with you. Yeah. And that was it. And I blocked. I think we were communicating via a text, because I'm like, why do you want to talk to me? He's like, well, you know, I need a friend. And I thought maybe you could use a friend too. And I'm just like, yeah, not you, buddy. Not ever. Not in this lifetime. So, yeah.
I mean, because of him, the two stepbrothers that I had, that Jolene and I got pretty close with, you know, and I'm saying my brother got close with them. I don't communicate with them, and I don't want to, unfortunately, because I don't want. That leads the stepping stone back to their dad, and I want nothing to do with him. So I really never gave my stepbrothers a chance to come back into my life either. And all the people that deal with him, I mean, that whole side of the family, you know, I just, to remove it all and keep it away is what's best for me. That's my boundary that I set with it. The only one that I talked to was really my mom's best friend, you know, who I call my aunt, and even that has diminished over time, because it's just like, yeah, man, sometimes you gotta leave the past in the past in order to heal and keep going forward. That's just what I've really needed. You know, my mom talks about, like, Jolene got pissed off and John compartmentalized. I think I just ran. I mean, I joined the Navy like 4 days after high school. I knew what the fuck I was doing. I was getting out of Kansas City. I was leaving, running away, never to be seen again.
And she never came back.
I really never came back.
She came back for about 8 months and then left again, because I think there was like this, all of it for at least, John left too. John left Kansas City. It was a bad taste in their mouth for Kansas City.
Oh, it was a fucking dark cloud. Like, I never wanted to go to that city again.
For me, I managed to, get a career. I went to school.
Yeah. You changed your whole life.
I literally changed my whole life. I went to school. I graduated from college. I got another job. I excelled at my job. I was at that job for 30 years. I'm still at that same job. So for me, the dark cloud over Kansas City, he's so far in the past, but for the kids, and this is where the guilt as a parent comes in, when you look at your children and you realize the damage that you did, that your choices did to your kids. It's hard to forgive yourself, I think, sometimes. Yeah. But and you guys are probably wondering, what in the fuck does this have to do with witchcraft, right? I think back now and I wonder if I had the practices of witchcraft. At the time I was into astrology and tarot, but I didn't have any like ritual practices. I knew nothing about the things that I know about today. I didn't even believe at that time that we were here on the earth to learn. I didn't even have the knowledge that this is a classroom, that we make these choices and we come here and we go through these things because we're trying to learn lessons. I didn't have all of that then. And I've wondered, as I've gone into this, as I've gone through the 5 years that we've been talking to people, talking to women and trying to helping them heal, I wondered what would have been different. Would things have been different for me if I'd known today what I know then? What I do know is that, I was working from a place of fear. All of my decisions were fear-based. Fear of relapsing, fear of going back to, this is going back to California, fear of relapsing, fear of going back into a situation that was bad for me and my kids, fear of poverty, the fear of being alone. When you're a 29, 30-year-old woman and you have 3 small children, that's hard. That's really hard. It's hard to be a single mom raising kids, which for the rest of their life, I was never with anybody. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, for the rest of their childhood, I was never with anyone.
I was like, for the rest of our life.
For the rest of their childhood, I was like, I can't have a man in my life because they've already been traumatized enough, and I cannot risk bringing someone else into. So I cut myself off. I worked 2 jobs. I worked fucking night and day to be able to give them a life, because at $25,000 a year with a car payment and rent, there wasn't a lot left over. So I started working a second job, and that second job was like nights, 5 nights a week from 7 to midnight. I worked for LabCorp doing data entry, and that job started out also as a temp service, and then it went to a full-time job, and I stayed there for 9 years. It was a good source of income, and I was able to actually provide a little better. I was able to buy a house. Then I changed jobs. So,
so if you had witchcraft or some of the practices,
if I had some of the practices, I don't know what would have changed, except that I may have been able to stay a little more grounded, but I don't know how I would have gotten myself out of it. I don't know if my decisions would have changed, because I was in such a place at the end of my first marriage and the time that I met this guy that I needed to extricate myself from Southern California and the life that I had been living. That needed to happen. And even though I moved to a place that with somebody that was traumatic for all of us, it's still, I can look back on it and say, I'm glad I made the move to Kansas City, because it led me to the career that I have. It led me to graduating from college. All of us, it took us to a different place where we had different choices. We had different options available to us, right? And if I just stayed in the desert where we lived, I don't know. I've gone back and I've looked at the map of the little town that we lived in, which was Desert Hot Springs, California. It looks exactly the same. Like, oh my God, if I just stayed there, no.
I think about it like this, though, for you, when I think about your younger self having some kind of spiritual practice, maybe not necessarily witchcraft as in spells and all that, but had you known about energy work and manifestation, I think that you would have switched from when we're in fear-based mode, which is just like making decisions to survive and just, you get comfortable in a certain level of pain and you're like, okay, well, life can't get better than that right now. Whereas if we flip that to today, when we get into tough situations, the one thing we start doing is speaking to the universe, using more of that manifestation like language where we're like, universe, give me a sign for this. Like, I need help out of here.
I could have used some signs from the universe. It would have been, for sure.
You would have like, your energy would have gone towards that where you're like, I need to get out of this, show me if, let something pop up. Let me look for signs. Because when you're in base mode, when you're in that low level range of energy, you're not looking for signs that things are going to get better, go well, a clue here, a friend there. You really got confined to the bad situation and didn't get outside of that. It was like, just fucking get through, but alone. And I think that when we develop a spiritual practice, we start looking outside of ourselves and asking and looking for help more than we normally would when we're in this like state of fear and just survival and like, nobody knows what I'm going through and I can't fucking trust anybody and I'm not going to tell anybody what's going on. You keep it all in.
Yeah.
Sometimes presenting to the world like everything is normal, but inside you're just like, I want out of this situation so bad, but I'm gonna pretend like everything's fine. It doesn't get you help,
Right.
So the manifestation thoughts was one of the first things that I really thought of, where it's how you change your thinking more so, like more Joe Dispenza type things, right?
Yeah, more like you can change your
change your thoughts, change your reality.
Yeah, change your thoughts, change your reality. You know, what you think about, you bring about, all of that. It is really true. I mean, I could have had that would have helped me in that way had I had a spiritual practice at that time, which
known
I
about it,
known about it, knew anything about it, and I didn't.
Well, I think that's why over the last 6 years now that you've been with me and going along on this path, the evolution in yourself over 6 years and the things that you've recognized and that you wanted to change and that you're just like dealing with. She's going through the super fast pace, like reconciliation with life and life choices. Like it's all coming so fast because I basically push it on her all the time as we do talks like this. But you're doing great, I mean,
it only took me 67 years to get here.
It took you getting out of the situation.
60 years to get here.
And getting around somebody, truly, like, who you surround yourself with is going to determine so much of your life, whether it's the nagging friends, the bad family members, the whoever. Like, if you don't find the people that are positive and want to lift you up and want to grow you and stand by you when things aren't well and, like, you're figuring your shit out emotionally, or, you can have fights and come back together, and it's like, that's okay. We're all here having this human experience. The way that, can I say how I reconciled, having Chuck as a stepfather for this time and like dealing with everything?
Please, yes, please.
Well, it's your story, but
yeah, it's my story, but now we're on the it's our story too, because all of my kids would have any one of them that would be willing to talk about it would have their own. I'm giving you my point of view from my point of view, what I saw and what I experienced. But I have 3 children that went through this, and they have their own.
And we had to watch our mother getting beat up on and shit, like just put down, treated poorly. Like that was also really awful to watch. She is a really good person and she's always been a really good mother. And so to see her
so
mistreated.
Listen, I just want you guys don't even know how fortunate I feel that my children have, one, forgiven me, and that they say you were a good mom.
Always been a good mom,
because I wasn't always a good mom. I didn't feel anyway. I mean, I tried to be a good mom to them, but the decisions that I made caused them a lot of pain and suffering, and I guess, I don't know if
that's good. Okay, because here's how I reconcile all that pain and suffering that you are trying to claim credit for also, okay?
I'm not trying to.
You're saying that my decisions made this all happen. That is true, but And this is where my belief system really plays into how I'm going to feel and tell my own story about my life to myself. It's not even just sharing it with you guys, but what you believe becomes your story. I mean, so you could change the way that you think about your life at any time, and all of a sudden you no longer are necessarily the victim, or everything bad happens to you, or you never had a fighting chance. All the things that we might say to ourselves when life gets really hard. This is the key thing that I've learned, that I tell myself so that I keep it in a reference that it doesn't hurt so much personally. I do believe that we make soul contracts before we come to earth, right? I believe that I knew my mom was going to be my mom, my siblings, like certain people I was going to meet, my son's father, my son, my husband I have now, you know, even some of his family members that I feel really close with. I do believe that we have many, many people we are meant to have interactions with here on earth because they provide our lessons. And we would not come here and just be like, oh gosh, I hope I run into somebody who helps me learn the lesson of patience. No, we design all of those things and we add in lots of layers of options on how that can become uncovered. But I truly believe that with my stepdad, we all decided on a contract that he was going to be the monster in our lives that propelled us into something else. Without my pain and suffering, I probably wouldn't be as passionate about helping women, as passionate about teaching, as passionate about psychology and my spiritualism, and then like teaching witchcraft, just all the things that I've done. It pushes me because I've had the bad experiences, you know, and it didn't, for me, we're going to get into my stories later, but I had things in childhood, but then I had things when I was successful in the Navy that happened to me that were really, really fucked up. Again, it just kept pushing me to be like, okay, so we all go through bad shit, even when you think you're in total control of your life and you think you're making all the choices and decisions, and then life like throws you this curveball or takes somebody out or, you know, puts somebody in, and the shit we don't actually ever have control of. I just remember that probably made an agreement that I was going to go through this. What can I learn from it? You know, I feel bad more for Chuck now because if he agreed to come here and be the monster that he is and to be disliked and hated and all that negative energy put upon his soul, I don't know what it's going to be like for him when he crosses over. But most of the time when you lead these, you know, really icky lives here, hurting people, hurting children, animals, whatever, there has to be some kind of fucking soul cleansing when you get to the other side, because there's no way that you feel okay after you just lived a life doing shit like that. But so I see it in a way like I honor him coming here as a monster to teach us lessons, or just specifically me maybe. Like, I don't condone any of the things that he did, of course, but what I see is that there's purpose in it. We can make purpose out of that pain, that we can turn that pain into something that's really powerful, becoming a keynote speaker, leading a women's shelter, writing books on, you know, pain, learning about the things that happen to us, and then getting more knowledge out there in the world to actually heal the world. It's very hard to heal something if you haven't been through it, and like then you go to talk to people about it. You kind of need, people sort of need to know you've been through the same shit as them. Otherwise they're like, what do you know? Like, you've never been smacked across the face, you know, you've never had a black eye. Like, it would be much harder to listen to somebody if they didn't come from the same place that you came from. And that's where I think, okay, I'll accept that. I can't say grateful. I can't say I'm happy with it. I'm, you know, sometimes I talk to my higher self and I'm like, what the fuck? You know, like, why? And then I'm just like, all right, well, I'm growing something, because, you know, this probably won't be my last life on earth, even though we've all kind of agreed we want it to be like our last incarnation.
We're like, this is it.
We're done after this. I don't want to incarnate again.
This is enough.
No, I don't want to come back. I want to go to a peaceful planet somewhere else. Yeah, that's just like
let me be a light and light in the world.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah.
But
fuck.
If we are truly growing this planet into something else by reincarnating as souls, you know, these are the lessons that we need our soul to have experiences with that kind of stick in the soul memory, not the human memory when we're incarnate, to come back and really make changes. Because we can sit around and look at everything and be like, that needs to change. I'm pissed off about that. That's no good. But what can we do about it? You know, so it's no longer about keeping the emotions inside of you after you experience the bad things, but what do you do with them? Turn that into an action. Do something with that. Talk to other people about it. When you share your story like we're sharing ours, you do heal people. You let them know that they're not alone. You can see that everybody goes through shit. Like, it's to know that you're not alone, because the thing with the human experience is that's the one thing that we can never overcome, is we're truly alone. The human spirit experience is a very lonely one. You can get as close as you can with everybody else, but like, there's always going to be a point where you're just with yourself, you're just in your head, the reflections that are going on, you're judging yourself, maybe you're having regrets. It can be a very lonely experience if we don't open up and like share with each other. So that is another reason why we decided this year was going to be like the big year of stories.
This year is going to be the year when
the year of putting everything out there.
When we're putting stuff out there so that women who are either going through similar situations or have been there and are trying to recover from it and trying to find themselves again, know that they're not alone, that we've been there. And I I want you to know that if this feels familiar to you, if you like, oh my God, that's happened to me, or you're going through this, that there is a version of you on the other side of all this who is proud of you for surviving.
Damn it. Okay, I was totally fine. I was not going to cry. But that's the truth, is that when we start to reflect over these things and you're out of this situation and you do look back and you're like, fuck, man, I did it. I was able to pull myself out of that situation. I was able to get past it, and I was able to find happiness again. I think that's another thing, because sometimes you feel like you're never going to be happy again when you go through all the bad shit, or like everything in the world is bad and fucked up and terrible. And I'm like, and it just makes you want to check out,
Yeah, and escape into something, shopping,
right?
Alcohol, drugs, whatever, anything to numb it.
Yeah, anything.
Right? Anything to just stop the thoughts and the feelings. And I do have, Jamie mentioned her stepbrothers who have tried to reach out to me over the years, and I took care of them, you guys, and they were little bitty.
Babies.
Corey was 6 months old.
I know.
I was the youngest one. He was 6
cute.
months old when we started getting him and his brother, and so they were like my children. I treated them just like I treated my children, but they try to reach out for me and they call me mom, and I'm sorry, but I cringe when they say that. And that sounds so harsh because it wasn't their fault what happened, but I can't. Yeah. I can't be there for them because it's a
link. Like I said, it's a link back to that place. It's a link back,
and there's too much.
It's super unhealthy.
It's no good. I can't be their stepmother. I can't be their mother. And they lost their mother. Their mother was actually, their mother died. I don't know how many years ago. 10 years ago.
2013.
13 years ago. Their mother died, and their mother was awful. She was awful to them. She was awful to them. So they're looking for that.
Herself.
But I wish him the best, but it can't be me. And I don't know if that sounds really awful. If anybody listens to this is like, damn, why you got to be so mean? But I just can't. I can't go back into that. And even with my best friend, I'm glad that I'm gone from Kansas City now, because Chuck stays in touch with her. They're still family again, because they have his sons are her nephews, and so I'm just like, I can't have it. I don't want it in my life. I don't want that energy around me. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to be reminded. Nothing. I'm like, it's the past, and I'm going to leave it there. That's where it's going to stay. And I am sorry for the boys that I'm not able to be there for them. They're men now, of course, and I wish them the best. And I'm sure they'll be okay too, because I think we all figure out. One got married to a woman who's in the military, and I'm not sure what the other one's doing. But they're grown ass men now. Shit. Yeah. They're in their Jolene's turning 40, so Corey's 39, and Jason's 41. Yeah. So they've had time to process through, and I know that they have a relationship with their father, which good. I mean, they've at least got one parent, and they've also got an extended family. He's got siblings on his side, and so they've got a family. They don't really need me, but I think it's their habit to call me up and be like, Mom. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm not your mom, honey. I'm sorry.
I don't think we should ever be ashamed of recognizing what we can't handle in our lives and not feel guilty towards the person who feels like they need us. If you can't show up for somebody because it affects your every state of being, there's nothing wrong with letting somebody go. I mean, that's going to be a story for me coming up in later podcasts, where really letting go of somebody that was like I never thought that I would end that friendship. It wasn't a relationship, but a friendship that just, I was going to the ends of the earth for that person. And when I finally had to step away from it, so much guilt tripping tried to happen. So much just like, what about, all these things in the time, blah, blah, blah. When somebody is toxic for you or brings toxic things in, and maybe it's not even their fault, we don't have to blame people for it. It's just like, you're not good for me. I recognize that, and I've got to cut this off. And the reasons could be whatever, but it's like, once you make that decision, cutting people out of your life can be one of the best things that you ever do, because you get to reclaim your energy after that. That time and energy that gets sucked into whatever they've got going on, where it does drain you, cutting people out of your life can really heal and give you more options. And
the other thing, if I was to like welcome them back into our family again, all of my children were impacted by this, you know, and I don't know what impact that would have on them. And just the fact that their father is like a stone's throw, like,
no, it would just, it would invite bad things.
Yeah,
it just would. There would be a lot of uncomfortableness, and, you know,
and there would be too much talking about the past and what had happened.
We would have to,
and you'd just be like ruminating in the shit from like all these years ago that you left behind. So
no ruminating. Do remember this: the story that you repeat to yourself about yourself becomes your reality. So whatever story you're telling yourself, kind of like what Kat was saying with how she was like, I can't do this because, you know, it was all these fear-based thoughts on what she couldn't do and wasn't ready and didn't do this. You know, sometimes I think in my head, although I don't ever like say it because it sounds really fucking rude, but be like, did you ever think about a women's shelter? Did you ever think about reaching out? Did you ever think about showing up at somebody else's doorstep? Did you like, how extreme would you have gone? You know, because I think about it for my own self on how extreme I went. We have a history in this family of when we need to break things off, we move states away. I mean, that's just something we all know about ourselves. That is what it, I mean, we're so, committed, loyal, just like in it. But we have to move states away.
I think it is. There's this, you know, we form these really bonds, deep connections and bonds with these people who have had some shared traumas that, you know, have similar traumas to us. And we just become so entwined in those emotions that the only way to get away from it is to move far, far away where you can't, somebody can't drive 2 hours to your house or an hour to your house or 6 hours to your house. It's like, you got to drive a day to get to me now, and that ain't happening. So,
and maybe that's it, because the people that we do try to cut off, they always want to come back.
They come back, y'all.
They always want to come back.
What is up with that?
Yeah, always. Well, and shit, yours still came back after 30 years. So
30 years later? Dude, I already know what he was thinking. He's like, oh yeah, just get back in, just move right back in there. I remember the good times we had, because he doesn't remember the bad stuff.
Yeah, I truly believe that he blocked out a lot of stuff.
He blocked out that shit. But it's still there. So, and that is just the first of many. I think that's it for us for today, right?
That's the first of many powerful, deep, emotional stories.
We should, you know what we forgot to do, Jamie? We forgot to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this for anybody who's been, you know, in these situations and traumatized. So I think we're going to make sure that we do that. I don't know if we can add a little intro. I meant to say that in the beginning. So if you bailed, I'm sorry that we didn't warn you that, you know, abuse was coming. But we'll put a disclaimer.
Maybe. Well, what if we added something like that to our title, where it was like every title had in it, you know,
warning,
trigger warning,
or
something
we need trigger
like that.
Warnings. I think I almost feel like we need that, because some women, I just don't feel like they can handle hearing it.
No, hearing it is hard, especially if you're going through it and dealing with it, and like if you're freshly out of it. Shit, me talking about some of my stories was really hard, but now, like you said, the further you get away from the situation, it gets a little bit easier, and we've done a lot of reflective work on stuff.
It's been 30 years.
Lots of talking about it.
It's actually been more than, has it been 30 years? Yeah, because I've been with the company I'm with for 31 years in May, and I was still working at the PR firm when Chuck and I split.
So that's what we were trying to pin down the date. Is you probably left in either 93 or 94?
I think it was 93, and I think I divorced him in 94. I tried to find the record of it online, but I couldn't. But yeah, it's 93, 94, that period of time. So, you know, it's been a long ass time, and yeah, so anyway, thank you for being with us today. Yes. And I know after hearing this story that you guys can't wait to hear the rest of our crazy ass stories.
Oh my gosh.
Next up will be Jamie, and I don't even know what story she's going to talk about, but she's got plenty, and you don't have to talk about it right now. But the next thing, I guess, for you guys is we're doing a live on January 13th. We're going to be building a grimoire online. this year.
Over the next 12 months.
Over the next 12
it's not
months.
in one setting, but
No, it's not one setting. So if you're going to be around, look for the link. It's already set up in YouTube that you can join us that night, or you can watch it after that. But I'm working on my pages. We have work assignments. Have you started working on your pages?
Oh, yeah. I brought my book so I could show you.
Oh, good. So I've started working on mine. And here's the interesting thing. So, of course, my daughter and I were not the same people, right? Pisces, Scorpio, even though, interestingly enough, we share a
rising and
a moon sign, which is probably why we get along pretty easily, I think, or I don't know, we just click or whatever.
We're fucking best friends. What are you trying to say? we are best friends.
I just don't. I don't want your sister to hear that and I don't want
you guys, she's a mirror with you. So
Jolene is my mirror.
She's a Taurus, you're a Scorpio.
Yeah, she is my mirror. And you know what? One of the things that when I had that epiphany, if you will, as I was going through this story and writing all the things down so that I could try to organize, how I was going to tell it to you guys. And I was like, Jolene became the mirror. And I'm like, Jolene is the mirror. And now when I look at my daughter with different eyes, because what I'm seeing in her, if I see something in her that annoys me or whatever, I'm like, oh, that's you, honey.
That's you, right there.
And that is like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh shit. That right there. Okay, I'm 67.
It's a new realization. She's still sitting with it.
I mean, this is really like just happened, and so I'm just like, okay, wow, that's a trip. That's a total trip. So, let's see what else. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
Just a reminder that the podcast is only coming out it's like the first and
there'll be 2 a month.
First and third Saturdays of the month. Yeah. So
we were supposed to have this out yesterday, but Jamie got sick.
Sick.
She got really, really sick, and then today still wasn't feeling well, and I thought we might have to
postpone it again.
Thought we might have to postpone it. So of course, life does what life does, and if we're not exactly on time, just know that we haven't gone anywhere because we are absolutely dedicated to building our witch community this year. It's a 1 year for all of us, and so we're super excited about the plans that we have, and we hope to see you on a live or hear your comments if you have any feedback on if there's anything you want to share with us. I wish we had like a big group session, where we could just, we could all get together. But we're here for you if you need us. Just
in whatever capacity. We're not sure what capacity we can help in, but we're offering services. We're here to help and talking to, and I've given out my number before. I don't know. I'm pretty bold when it comes to connecting with witches who hear stuff and then email us, and then I'm like, why don't you call me? Let's. I think we'd be friends. We should. Let's talk. I do that. I know, it's crazy. Well, we love you guys. Thank you so much for being with us tonight as we start this new chapter for the Witch's Way podcast, and we talk about our most intimate, personal, crazy, scary, fucked up stories.
Stories that changed us.
Yeah. Our evolution.
That's what it is. It really is our evolution. Yeah. So we hope to see you around.
Yeah. All right. Love you guys. Bye.